Significance of this election. I'm joined now by Jason Marczak. He's Deputy Director of the Latin America Center at the Atlantic Council. Jason, welcome back to the broadcast.
Thanks, Suzanne.
You just heard Stephen's report there. He's saying as much as 78% voter turnout. What do you make of that number?
Well, I think it clearly shows that the people in Venezuela see this as a historic election. I mean, there has been unprecedented buildup to this particular election. There is both from the opposition side as well as from the government side. And I think, as Stephen said as well, this does favor Chavismo. The Chavismo is really good about turning out voters everywhere from the workplace, from your boss telling you got to go out and you got to vote for Chavismo, to fear that if you don't vote for Chavismo, you're going to lose your apartment or you're going to lose your food rations. And so that fear of the opposition winning and what would that mean for social programs is one of the ways that Chavismo is trying to turn out its voters.
The economy is obviously on everyone's mind. We saw those store shelves which are empty, highest inflation in the world. If the opposition party should win, would this be a vote against the Maduro government or a vote for change?
Well, I think, I've seen Venezuela over the years. Every time I think something is happening, it's getting worse, I'm surprised because it gets even worse. And as you say, Venezuela is really at a tipping point. I mean, we're at almost 200% inflation, the largest economic contraction, 10% this year of any economy in the world. And I think what this is it's a vote for change, but it's also there's also a sense of disillusionment with Maduro as a leader. He barely squeaked through against Enrique Capriles as president 2 years ago. And he doesn't have the same charisma as Chavez did. He's a former bus driver, and he's basically trying to keep the party united. And people, if it was Chavez who was still in power,
would he be able to pull this out?
Chavez, if Chavez was in power, he had amazing rhetorical skills, and he could take any crisis and turn it around for the benefit of the revolution. Maduro just doesn't have that sense of clout with the Venezuelan people, and people are really, as we saw during the clip, people are really hurting at the store shelves, and everything.
Earlier, he said that he would actually, take to the streets should the opposition party win. Now he's changing his tune. He's backing down. Is he fearing violence? Why is he changing his tune?
Well, I think Maduro is under increasing international pressure as well. Look, things across the region have shifted dramatically, especially with Mauricio Macri winning in Argentina, who's taking office this week. He has said on day one he's going to try to invoke the democracy clause of Mercosur if Leopoldo Lopez and other political prisoners are still in jail. And so there is a shifting tide across the region. Maduro has this need to give the veiled sense of democracy in Venezuela.
Well, the big question here is, let's say that he is able to pull this out, that the 78% vote that we think has turned out is actually him mobilizing the vote. How will he turn things around? What's going to be different?
Well, I think it's very difficult for him to turn things. I mean, I think there is a lot of speculation that already in the pipeline are a series of additional new economic measures that are going to be imposed next year. But the economic measures that he has taken in the past have clearly not worked. Much of what he has done has been to blame capitalism and blame the private sector on all the challenges, blame the Colombians manufacturing a crisis at the border with the Colombians for the crisis. And so what he needs to do is he needs to get rid of the economic controls that are in place. He needs to allow for dollars to freely float within the economy, and he needs to allow for private sector investment to come again into Venezuela. But that's simply not going to happen with Maduro in power.
Does it matter in terms of his effectiveness? Let's say the opposition party does come in, MUD does come in and wins handily. Does that matter in regards to how powerful of a president he has in the remaining days of his term?
It does and it doesn't. Well, I think one thing that's important to point out is that the MUD is not a party. The MUD is a coalition of political parties. And so one of the big challenges for the opposition is going to be if they win a significant amount of congressional seats in the parliament, is good. How are they going to keep this coalition together? And this has been a historic challenge with the opposition, which is by nature very fractured. Maduro must seek to try to work with that Congress. But I think what's going to happen, I think what we have to keep our eyes on, is enacting additional emergency decrees to try to subvert the power of the National Assembly if the opposition, in fact, does have significant control.
All right. Jason Marczak, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks,
we appreciate
Susan.
it. It's an exciting time. It'll be interesting to see what happens. Thank you.